Imagine waking up one day to find that everything you've ever believed in, your morals, your values, your purpose, was all an illusion. The world you thought had meaning, turns out it's an empty void. No higher power, no divine justice, no eternal truth, just nothing. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, this is exactly the terrifying reality Nietzsche warned us about in 1882, with just 3 words: God is dead. But what did he mean? This wasn't an attack on religion, it was a warning. Nietzsche was talking about the collapse of meaning itself. For centuries, humans found purpose in religion. But what happens when that foundation vanishes? When everything you've built your life around crumbles? Nietzsche said we killed God, not because of science, but because we stopped needing him. And here's the kicker: if God is dead, so is everything else. The rules of right and wrong, morality, even justice. Without purpose, we're left adrift in a world that feels empty. Nietzsche predicted a future of existential despair, where people either spiral into nothingness or desperately search for something to replace what's lost. Is this our reality today? Are we still trapped in Nietzsche's prophecy? And if we are, is there any way out? The birth of God is Dead happened in a dimly lit study, the air thick with the scent of ink and old parchment. Outside, the streets of 19th century Germany were alive with the echoes of a changing world. Factories roaring, science unraveling ancient beliefs, and philosophy tearing apart the very fabric of morality. In the middle of it all, a lone man sits hunched over his desk, feverishly writing words that will shake the foundation of human thought. His name? Friedrich Nietzsche. His words, God is dead. And he pauses for a moment, gripping his pen as if even he is overwhelmed by the weight of what he has just written. He knows that these words will not just spark debate, they will set the world on fire. To understand why Nietzsche uttered these infamous words, we have to step back into his world, a world at war with itself. Europe in the late 19th century was undergoing a radical transformation. Science had begun to strip away the mysteries of the universe. Darwin's theory of evolution had shattered the belief that humans were divinely created. The Industrial Revolution had turned the old world into a machine-driven empire. Faith, once the heartbeat of civilization, was fading. For centuries, religion was the foundation of morality, purpose, and truth. But now doubt was creeping into the hearts of people. Science explained life in ways that did not require God. Society was evolving beyond the moral codes dictated by ancient scriptures. Nietzsche saw what many refused to acknowledge. The world no longer needed God. But this was not something to celebrate. This was a crisis. Nietzsche was not an atheist in the modern sense. He was not just rejecting God, he was mourning his death. Imagine a child realizing for the first time that Santa Claus is not real. That moment of shock, betrayal, and emptiness. Now amplify that feeling 1,000 times. That was Nietzsche's vision for the world. He was not saying God never existed. He was saying we have killed him. And in doing so, we have left ourselves stranded with no moral compass, no ultimate truth, no meaning. Nietzsche saw himself as a prophet, screaming into the void, warning humanity about the disaster ahead. He knew that without God, society would spiral into nihilism, a world where nothing matters. People would replace religion with blind consumerism, political fanaticism, or shallow pleasure, desperately trying to fill the void. But here's the heartbreaking part. Nietzsche did not just predict this crisis, he lived it. A genius ahead of his time, he spent his final years in solitude, misunderstood, battling both illness and madness. He was a man burdened with knowledge too terrifying for his time. His words would go on to inspire generations. But in his own lifetime, he was ridiculed and dismissed. Can you imagine the frustration, knowing you have uncovered a truth so powerful, so dangerous, that the world is not ready to hear it, watching as society sleepwalks into the abyss, unable to stop it? Nietzsche was that man, a lone voice in the dark. And as he sat there, staring at those words, God is dead, he knew that history would never be the same again. The psychological impact of God is dead. Imagine this. You are standing on the edge of a vast, endless abyss. You look down, expecting to see something, anything, but there's nothing. No ground beneath your feet, no light to guide you, no voice to tell you which way to go, just a terrifying emptiness. Now, imagine that abyss is inside your mind. For centuries, religion acted as humanity's safety net. It gave us purpose, told us what was right and wrong, and promised us that no matter how chaotic life seemed, there was meaning behind it all, a divine plan, a higher purpose. But then, Nietzsche came along and ripped the safety net away. And the question that remained was, what happens to a mind when everything it once believed in is suddenly gone? Psychologists today call it an existential crisis. It's a moment when everything you thought was true, your beliefs, your morals, your purpose, crumbles in front of you. It's the kind of experience that can break a person, and Nietzsche knew this better than anyone. When he declared God is dead, he was not just talking about religion. He was talking about the collapse of an entire psychological framework. Without God, there was no ultimate justice, no cosmic plan, no guarantee that life had any inherent purpose. And here's the terrifying part. Most people are not prepared for that kind of freedom. At first, the idea of a world without God might sound liberating. No rules, no divine judgment, just pure, unrestricted freedom. But freedom without direction is like drifting in an ocean without a map. For many, this realization is overwhelming. Without a higher power defining morality, who decides what's right or wrong? Without a divine plan, what's the point of suffering? Without the promise of an afterlife, why does anything matter? This is not just a theoretical problem, it's a psychological nightmare. In Nietzsche's time, people still clung to the remnants of religion. But today, we are living in the world he predicted. A world where traditional beliefs are fading, and people are left to navigate meaning on their own. Depression, anxiety, and nihilism are on the rise. More people than ever before feel lost, disconnected, and without purpose. And maybe, just maybe, it's because we have killed the very thing that once gave life meaning. But here's the twist. Nietzsche never said that humanity could live without meaning. He knew that if people abandoned God, they would not just accept meaninglessness, they would look for something else to replace him. And that's exactly what happened. Some turned to political ideologies, treating them with the same blind faith once reserved for religion. Others drowned themselves in materialism, believing that wealth or status could give them purpose. And then, there are those who chase pleasure, constant entertainment, distractions, anything to avoid facing the void inside them. But deep down, none of it truly satisfies. The feeling of emptiness remains because meaning can't just be replaced like a broken light bulb. It has to be rebuilt. And Nietzsche believed that only a rare kind of person could do it. A person strong enough to face the abyss without breaking. Someone who does not crumble in despair, but instead creates their own purpose. A Superman. But how does one become that? And more importantly, can you? The dangerous truth of a godless world, a world without limits. Imagine a world with no divine rules, no absolute morality, no cosmic justice. What would stop someone from lying, stealing, or even killing? If there's no higher power to judge them, if there's no heaven to reward goodness and no hell to punish evil, then what's the point of being good at all? This is the terrifying question Nietzsche forced the world to confront when he said, God is dead. He was not celebrating. He was warning us. He saw a future where people, unchained from religious morality, might lose all sense of right and wrong. And history has proven him right. A world without God can be far darker than anyone imagined. One of the biggest mistakes people make about Nietzsche is thinking he was simply an anti-religion rebel. They assume he was just saying, God does not exist, so do whatever you want. But that's not what he meant. He was not just talking about religion. He was talking about the entire moral structure built around it. For centuries, humanity lived by moral systems based on religious principles. Ideas of justice, compassion, sin, and virtue. These were not just spiritual beliefs, they were the foundation of civilizations. Even atheists today live by moral standards shaped by religious history. But Nietzsche knew that once people rejected religion, they would not just abandon God, they would abandon the moral order that came with him. And that's when things get dangerous, the rise of nihilism and power struggles. When people stop believing in a higher power, they don't suddenly become enlightened beings. Many fall into nihilism, the belief that life is meaningless, morality is an illusion, and nothing truly matters. And when that happens, something terrifying occurs. If there's no ultimate right or wrong, then the only thing left is power. Nietzsche feared that in a godless world, people would not seek truth or meaning. Instead, they would turn to domination, The strong would impose their will on the weak. Morality would become whatever the most powerful people decided it to be. This was not just a theory. History has already shown us what happens when morality is replaced by raw power. Nietzsche's philosophy was deeply complex, but after his death, it was twisted by those who sought to use it for their own agendas. One of the most infamous examples is Adolf Hitler. Nazi ideology misused Nietzsche's ideas, especially his concept of the Übermensch, a Superman. Nietzsche spoke about transcending traditional morality to create new values, but the Nazis distorted this into a doctrine of racial superiority. They believed that might makes right, that power was the ultimate truth, and that morality was whatever they decided it to be. Nietzsche would have been horrified. He despised nationalism, despised blind obedience, and despised the kind of herd mentality that led people to follow authority without question. His philosophy was not about justifying cruelty. It was about the terrifying responsibility of creating new meaning in a world without divine rules. But the real danger is not just in dictators who misuse philosophy. It's in all of us, the struggle of every human being. We live in the world Nietzsche predicted, a world where religion is fading, where people are struggling to find meaning, where morality is constantly being redefined. And here's the truth, most people don't want to face it. Without a higher power, you become responsible for creating your own moral code. You have to decide what is right and wrong. You have to find your own purpose in a universe that offers none. That's a terrifying freedom. Most people run from it. They either cling to outdated beliefs or fall into nihilism. But Nietzsche believed there was another way, a harder way, to face the abyss and build your own meaning from the ground up. But how? How do you create purpose in a world where nothing is given to you? This is the real question Nietzsche wanted us to answer, and it's the one question that might define the future of humanity itself. Escaping the abyss, Nietzsche's solution. What comes after God is dead. Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, dark abyss. The old world, the one where God provided meaning, morality, and purpose, is gone. And now you are staring into the void, wondering, what now? This is the terrifying reality Nietzsche described. He saw that without God, humanity risked falling into nihilism, a state where life feels meaningless, morality is questioned, and despair takes over. But here's what most people get wrong. Nietzsche did not want us to stay in nihilism. He was not just a critic of religion. He was a philosopher of transformation. And he gave us a way out, a way to create meaning instead of collapsing into meaninglessness. The Übermensch, becoming more than human. Nietzsche's answer to the death of God was not hopelessness, it was strength. He introduced the concept of the Übermensch, Superman, an individual who does not rely on external sources for meaning, but creates their own values. The Übermensch does not blindly follow traditional morality or societal norms. Instead, he destroys old beliefs that no longer serve him and builds a new foundation for his own existence. Think of the greatest artists, thinkers, and revolutionaries in history: Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, or even Steve Jobs. These were individuals who didn't accept the world as it was. They redefined it. The Übermensch is not just about rejecting the past. It's about becoming something greater than what you were yesterday. It's about turning struggle into strength, chaos into creation, and meaninglessness into purpose. But how do you do that? The will to power, taking control of your life. Nietzsche believed that life isn't about finding meaning, it's about creating it. And this is where his idea of the will to power comes in. The will to power is the force that drives all living beings. It's the desire to grow, to improve, to dominate your circumstances rather than be controlled by them. Every time you overcome a fear, break a personal limit, or create something new, you are exercising the will to power. But when you avoid challenges, let fear dictate your actions, or blindly follow what others tell you, you are suppressing it. The difference between a strong person and a weak one is not intelligence, luck, or resources. It's whether they embrace the will to power or reject it. And that leads us to the final question. How do you apply this to your own life? Nietzsche's philosophy is not just some abstract theory. It's a guide to living, a roadmap for escaping the abyss of nihilism and taking control of your life. Here's how. Stop waiting for meaning. Create it. There is no divine plan waiting for you. You must craft your own story. Pursue what excites you. Create something new. Challenge yourself daily. Question everything. Don't accept ideas just because society tells you to. Ask yourself, do I truly believe this, or am I just following others? Embrace struggle. Pain, suffering, hardship are not enemies. They are fuel. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow stronger. Break free from external validation. The Übermensch does not seek approval from others. He defines success on his own terms. Become the architect of your own morality. If the old rules no longer make sense, don't just abandon them. Replace them with something better. The final step: will you rise or fall? Nietzsche's philosophy is not for the weak. It's not a comforting lie. It's a brutal truth. If you accept it, you must take full responsibility for your life. So now you have two choices. Let the abyss consume you, believing life is meaningless, or step into the unknown and create your own path. The question is, which path will you choose? The real meaning of God is dead. Most people completely misunderstand Nietzsche's words. They think God is dead means he was celebrating atheism, mocking religion, or encouraging a world free from morality. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Nietzsche didn't declare God's death as a victory. He declared it as a tragedy, a crisis, a terrifying shift in human history. He saw that faith in God wasn't just about worship. It was the foundation of meaning, morality, and purpose for billions of people. And if that foundation collapsed, what would replace it? Nothing. That was his fear. A world without God would lead to nihilism, the belief that life has no meaning, no purpose, no truth. People would be lost, spiraling in existential despair with no guiding principles left. And that's exactly what we see today: the struggle of modern man. Look at the world around you. Depression and anxiety are at an all-time high. People are desperate for meaning, turning to social media, consumerism, or ideology to fill the void. Suicide rates are rising. A crisis of purpose is unfolding before our eyes. This is the world Nietzsche warned us about. But he also offered a way forward. He didn't want us to collapse into nihilism. He wanted us to take responsibility, to become the creators of our own meaning. If God is dead, then it's up to us to build a new morality, to rise above despair, and craft a purpose that is not handed down from the heavens, but forged from our own struggles and experiences. What this means for you: whether you believe in God or not, Nietzsche's warning applies to everyone. You can either run from the abyss, clinging to old beliefs without questioning them, or face the abyss. Accept that life has no inherent meaning and create your own. But ignoring the question is not an option. You will at some point be forced to confront the emptiness, the fact that life does not come with a pre-written purpose. The real challenge is, what will you do next? Will you let the weight of meaninglessness crush you, or will you, as Nietzsche urged, rise beyond it, become stronger, create, and define your own existence? Because in the end, God is dead is not just a statement about religion. It's a challenge, a call to action, a demand that you take control of your own destiny. So now, the question is yours to answer. Will you face the terrifying freedom Nietzsche spoke of? Will you take responsibility for your own beliefs, your own morality, your own meaning? Or will you fall into the abyss of nihilism, letting others dictate what you should believe?